Hey guys, Brent Build Show. I was recently on a podcast, the Modern Craftsman. If you don't listen to their podcast, you need to. These are young builders trying to build better, right? One of the discussions that came up was how to be a master builder and what that looks like. I believe that one of the things that we need to do, I think you've heard me say before, we kind of lost the art of building. I believe we need to study the past, and that by studying the past, we become better builders. I'm writing an article for Fine Home Building that you'll be able to check it out and read this kind of top 10 books for builders. It's a few more than 10, but it's the start of your library. And what I would like you to do as an aspiring craftsman, as an aspiring builder, is to build a library. Now, I've got over 3,000 books in here, right? And I've got a small library, right? I want you to realize that you need a bigger library than just a few books, okay? I would like everybody to at least have 100 books in their library, right? I think it makes you better. And if you study these books, you become a better builder, a better craftsman. Now, I've got a list of books here kind of as a starter kit, right? Some of these are reproductions, some of these are originals. I start with Asher Benjamin, The Country Builder's Assistant. This book was written in 1797. Asher Benjamin is one of my heroes because he was an early craftsman, builder, and designer, right? I think that's what the master builder model is, that you understand design. I think architects need to be better builders. I think builders need to be better architects. And so this is the starting point. This is our model for what a master builder looks like. And in this book, it's called The Country Builder's Assistant. He was writing this book for country builders, right? He was writing it for guys who needed to learn how to become better builders. So that's your starting point. Great details in there. And when you look and see what he knew, okay, and what he was explaining, it'll blow you away. My first book, okay, when I went to North Bennett Street was this book, Field Guide to American Houses. Now this is the second edition. We just studied the first edition. I think you have to understand the life of American architecture, right? In order to build a colonial house, you need to study what colonial houses are, right? In order to restore a Tudor house, you need to know what Tudor houses are and what they look like. Virginia McAllister does an incredible job of highlighting styles of houses, okay? Of highlighting, these are modern houses, right? There's Mediterranean houses. And she shows these different pictures of houses, right? With where they're located, the defining details. And so you'll get, as you work through this book, these ideas of what this style should look like, right? This is your starting point. This is the first book, one of the textbooks I read at North Bennett Street. How are you going to restore something from the 1920s unless you know what it looks like, right? Unless you know how to identify it. How are you going to get the parts and pieces right unless you understand it? So that's your first book, Field Guide to American Houses. Next, you should begin to dig in a little deeper. Virginia's books are very, a mile wide, an inch deep, right? And so now you're going to go to sources where you're going to try to find more in-depth coverage of the style. In this case, this is Georgian houses, Great Georgian Houses of America, written in 1933. And you'll see these beautiful plates, beautiful pictures of the style, okay, who was building, what these houses looked like. You see drawings of the layouts of the grounds, different houses. There's Monticello, the Hammond Harwood house in here is the house I respect and looked at. So great details in here. You're going to see the full picture of what that house looked like and what those details look like. It's a 2-volume set. Okay, these are the originals. You can also get them as reprints in Dover. Excellent books. There are tons of books from the early 1900s into the 1930s on house styles. Western, Pennsylvania architecture, Western Connecticut architecture are book titles that you have that you can look at to dive in deep to that. The problem sometimes with those books is that they only show the exterior of the home, and so you don't really know what the interior looks like. When I stumbled across this collection of books called Colonial Interiors, and it's basically all just pictures of interiors of houses, right? There's an entry hall, there's some stairways, right? And stair details. The great thing is if you look at these stair details, there's 5 or 6 pages of federal stairs in here, right? Of federal details to look at, or Greek revival. So we just built a mantle for a couple in New Hampshire, right? How did we know how to build a federal mantle? We did it because we looked at examples of federal mantles in this book to understand what the historic precedent is so we could build a better one, right? So Colonial Interiors, a great look at the inside of these houses. If you want to know what the moldings look like, if you want to understand how it all goes together, that's a great book. Now, for you guys who are a little more geeky and want to study the construction details, right? This is a 1920s. This is actually 1911. This is 1920s, put out by Radford. Now, Radford was an early influencer. He had magazines. American Builder was one of his magazines. American Carpenter and Builder before that. And so he's got these books where all it shows is different details of interiors, of porches, of stairs, of moldings, right? Windows, tons of window details and stuff like that. Furniture even, floor plans, right? And so he's actually breaking out and showing the architectural details. They're scaled, so you can actually build these things. On our cabinets, the shelf staves that we use on our cabinets, we stole from this book, right? There's just great historic detail in there of how to do things like that. And his 1925 version is the same kind of thing. A lot of really great details on how to build and how to put things together. Moving forward a little bit, we get this book, Marion Casado. I recommend it quite a bit. Get Your House Right, okay? She does the best job. This is a newer book, probably in the last 10 years. She does the best job of explaining kind of classical design, the reason behind the columns and the details, the symmetry and the order, right? She does a great job. And what she does is she says avoid and use, right? And you can study the way she's drawn this thing so that you can say, oh, that makes more sense, or that doesn't, or I see why she said that. She explains each one of these things. She talks about how to do columns. Guys, if there's one thing you need to get right, it's how to set a column in a post. So many people are doing it wrong, and we'll talk about that in future videos. But she goes through this, and this is great stuff. Mostly the exterior of the house, but there's also interior details. There's some molding information and stuff in there. This is a great starting point book. Probably this is one of the first books you could get. Another guy I respect is a guy named Stephen Mouzon. He's written this book called Traditional Construction Patterns, and basically he goes through and has a don't and a do, right? And so you can see things of how to put windows together and how not to. He has one on even like dental moldings and the size of dental moldings. So very easy to read, very, seeing pictures of what works and what doesn't, eave details, gable ends, dentals, as I said. Again, another just book that should be on your shelf and book that you're familiar with as far as figuring things out. Another kind of thing you should be collecting is what's called the White Pine series. Okay, White Pine, these were monographs. Okay, these were individual things like this that you would subscribe to, that describe in the front, recording the architecture of early American colonies. This is number 2, volume 16. Early American windows, right? So they're dialing into what makes early American windows. A lot of good information, a lot of pictures, right? So there's great stuff in here as far as looking at kind of what works and what doesn't. There's 15 years, there are 20 years of these things. Mine are bound, okay? I have 7 volumes of these things all bound together, okay? So there's a lot of information in the monograph series that you should follow and look at. Another great series that is it's called Comparative Architectural Details. This is from Pencil Points magazine, which was an architect magazine. It was written, this is 34, and it just goes through different details. Like this one says eaves and gutters, okay? How exciting, right? And in different ways, architects have handled eaves and gutters on period style houses, right? There's drawings, there's pictures, there's great details. Here's one on dormers, right? Dormers is another thing that a lot of builders get wrong. Okay, they're too big, the windows are too small, the proportions are wrong. And so here's some great examples, okay, based on historic precedent of how to do dormers. This is a fun one, okay, because there's a lot of great inspirational details in here, as well as kind of top architectural designs, so comparative architectural details. A newer book, Suburban Nation. If you want to understand how our neighborhoods work and how neighborhoods are put together, this is a great book. Okay, so it started with Seaside in Florida in the 1980s. Okay, and the basic premise of Seaside was historic neighborhoods from the 20s were put together in a way that made sense. You didn't have to drive your car everywhere. You could walk to school, you could walk to the store, you could walk to your friend's house, right? Now today we've gotten to a situation where we have, you know, the school complex, the industrial complex, the shopping centers, and then the gated communities, right? And you have to drive a car to each one of those, right? And so the layout of our cities is kind of messed up, and this kind of goes back to the old way of doing it. Now, if you've heard of the TND, traditional neighborhood developments, that's all kind of started with this kind of Suburban Nation, a new way of thinking, going back to front porches and sidewalks and things like that. A great book. Now, I've talked about Fred Hodgson's book before. This is a later one. He wrote the original. This is a 2-volume set, okay? 1870s he wrote this, okay? And it's basically a how to build, okay? Using a steel square. Think about this, guys. He wrote a 2-volume set of books, okay? That was a bestseller about the steel square, okay? About a framing square, okay? So he goes through and breaks out how to do stairs, how to do dormers. I mean, the complexity in geometry. If you're into the geometry of building, right? This is kind of the starting point, showing you how to frame up that crazy turret there, right? So if you're a framer, you absolutely have to have this, but if you're a builder and want to really dig into the geometry of building, the steel square. A few more, then we're done. Odell's Carpentry, okay, and Builder's Guide, okay, 1 through 4. These were little 4-volume set, okay, 1926 to about 1940. You can still find them in this size, but they have explanations of different parts of building. So number 1 is tools, steel square, as we just talked about, saw filing, which of course everybody knows about, joinery and furniture, right? So, you know, these other ones, builder's math, estimating, schematics, house and roof framing, doors, windows, stairs, millwork, painting, right? This is what a builder knew in 1926. And these were designed to be in your tool apron or your tool pouch, right? So these were designed to be carried around in your toolbox and used as kind of, you know, Google in 1926, right? This is where that happens. But these books are precious, great information. There's ones on masonry as well. Aldous was the one on masonry. And so must-haves. And then finally, I got you a book here. Okay, now you're wondering, what does that have to do with building? It doesn't have anything to do with building. It has to do with drawing. And so what we're going to learn on some of our videos is the idea of how to draw. Now this is a book that's, what does it say, 60th edition. I think the original ones go back to 1928, 1930. You should be able to sketch out your ideas for your client. Well, some of you are saying, well, I can't draw, okay? Well, that's why I'm recommending this book, right? So that you can learn the subtleties, okay, of how to sketch for your client, okay? That is not a skill set that you shouldn't have. I was talking to Johnny on that show. He was talking about how he carries around a notebook for sketching. That's what architects do, right? Architects have sketchbooks. Let me show you my sketchbook, right? This is something that I carry around with me, okay? There's one of a moose and some fir trees. I was up in Canada at the time. I'm taking notes. There's a drawing for a pool house that we were considering with the floor plan. There's molding details that I was looking at, right? All kinds of different details where I am going to job sites, looking at and drawing pictures, right? I'm, you know, a C- drawer, right? There's the guys who work for me, my architects, are incredibly gifted at being able to draw and render. But you should be able to have an idea and sketch it out for your client. Want you to do that, and this rendering in pen and ink is the kind of how to just draw, you know, the basics of composition. Beautiful. So it's about pen and ink drawing, right? But the pictures and the details in here are just gorgeous. Imagine rendering these for your clients, right? So learn how to draw. That's the book. Realize that I'm trying to round you out, right? I'm trying to, that a master builder should understand design and understand design details. The best architects that I know that know how to design well are ones that study the past. And so a good collection, a good start, okay? Number of books to read. Read the Fine Home Building article because there's even more books I recommend in there. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram, Hull Millwork, Hull Homes. Thanks for watching.